When my son's wife handed me that coffee cup on the morning I was supposed to sign over my entire company, I smiled at her like I always did. I didn't know that smile would be the last normal thing I'd ever do in that house. I didn't know that the warm ceramic mug between my palms was supposed to be the last thing I'd ever hold. I was 63 years old. I had built an empire from nothing. I had survived poverty, betrayal, bankruptcy, and loneliness. But I had never imagined that the end of my life would come wrapped in kindness, delivered by family, in my own kitchen, on a Tuesday morning. I remember the way the steam rose from the cup. I remember the faint smell of vanilla. I remember thinking how thoughtful it was that she remembered I liked vanilla. My daughter-in-law, Emma, stood beside me with her hands folded neatly in front of her, her face soft and concerned. She had been so attentive in recent months, so caring, so present. My son Daniel was upstairs getting ready for the meeting. The lawyers were coming at 10. Everything was prepared. The documents were printed and waiting on the dining table. This was supposed to be the proudest day of my life. But then I heard a voice. Quiet. Trembling. Urgent. Mrs. Whitmore. Please. Don't drink that. I turned and saw Clara. My housekeeper. The woman who had worked for me for 11 years. She was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, her face pale, her hands shaking. She looked terrified. Emma's expression changed instantly. Her soft smile disappeared. Her eyes went cold. Clara, that's enough, Emma said sharply. Go back to your room. But Clara didn't move. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Please, she whispered. Please don't drink it. I looked down at the coffee in my hand. Then I looked back at Clara. Then at Emma. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life began to fall apart. I want to tell you how I got here. I want to tell you how a woman who built a $47 million company from nothing could end up holding poison in her own kitchen, prepared by the people she loved most. I want to tell you because maybe my story will help someone else see the signs I missed. Maybe my story will save someone else's life the way Clara saved mine. This is not a story about business. This is not a story about success. This is a story about trust, about family, about the quiet ways people can destroy you while smiling to your face. This is a story about how I almost died, and how I learned to live again. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not the beginning of that terrible morning, but the beginning of how I got there. Because nothing in life happens all at once. Betrayal doesn't announce itself. It builds slowly, quietly, in the corners of your trust. My name is Margaret Whitmore. I was born in a town so small it didn't even have a traffic light. My father worked in a factory that made car parts. My mother cleaned houses for wealthy families on the other side of town. We lived in a 2-bedroom house with peeling paint and a roof that leaked when it rained. We didn't have much, but we had enough. I learned early that if you wanted something in life, you had to work for it. No one was going to hand you anything. So I worked. I studied. I saved. I dreamed. I remember sitting at our small kitchen table doing homework by lamplight because we couldn't afford to fix the overhead light. My mother would come home exhausted, her hands red and raw from scrubbing floors. But she never complained. She would sit with me and help me with my math. She would tell me that education was the only way out. You're smart, Margaret, she'd say. You're smarter than anyone in this town. Don't waste it. I didn't waste it. I got a scholarship to State College. I studied business administration. I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for books and rent. I graduated with honors. I was 22 years old and I had $500 to my name. But I had something more valuable than money. I had ambition. I had discipline. And I had a plan. By the time I was 25, I had started my own business. It was just a small consulting firm at first. I helped local businesses organize their operations, manage their finances, streamline their systems. I worked out of a tiny office above a dry cleaner. The rent was cheap and the space smelled like chemicals, but it was mine. I was good at what I did. I was smart, disciplined, and relentless. I didn't take no for an answer. I didn't give up when things got hard. Within 5 years, my company had expanded into 3 states. I hired employees. I rented a real office. I bought my first car that wasn't falling apart. Within 10 years, we were national. I had offices in 12 cities. I had 200 employees. I was flying across the country meeting with CEOs and executives. By the time I turned 50, Whitmore Solutions was worth $47 million. I built that company with my own hands. I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. I worked 16-hour days. I traveled constantly. I sacrificed friendships, relationships, and rest. But I told myself it was worth it. I told myself I was building something that would last. Something that would matter. Something I could pass down. People called me ruthless. They called me cold. They said I cared more about money than people. Maybe they were right. I don't know. All I know is that I did what I had to do to survive. To succeed. To prove that a girl from a house with peeling paint could build an empire. I got married once when I was 28. His name was Richard. He was charming, ambitious, and completely wrong for me. He worked in real estate. He had big dreams but no follow-through. He wanted the lifestyle success brought without doing the work. We met at a business conference. He swept me off my feet with his confidence and his smile. We got married 6 months later. I thought I loved him. Maybe I did. But looking back, I think I was just lonely. I was tired of being alone. Tired of working all the time. I wanted someone to come home to. Someone to share my life with. We had one son together. Daniel. I loved that boy more than anything in the world. I looked at his tiny face in the hospital and I made a promise to him. I promised him he would never struggle the way I had struggled. I promised him he would have everything I didn't. I promised him he would never know what it felt like to go to bed hungry, or to wear shoes with holes in them, or to be embarrassed about where he came from. Richard left when Daniel was 6. He said I cared more about my business than my family. He said I was never home. He said I was married to my work, not to him. Maybe he was right. I don't know. All I know is that after he left, it was just me and Daniel. And I poured everything I had into that child. I gave him the best schools, the best clothes, the best toys, the best opportunities. I hired tutors. I paid for sports leagues and music lessons and summer camps. I wanted him to have the childhood I never had. I wanted him to grow up confident and secure and unafraid. But somewhere along the way, I think I gave him too much. I think I made things too easy. Because by the time Daniel was 35, he had never really worked for anything. He had a degree from a top university that I paid for. He had a job at my company that I gave him. He had a beautiful home that I helped him buy. He had a luxury car. He had designer clothes. He had everything. But he didn't have hunger. He didn't have fire. He didn't have the thing that had driven me my entire life. He didn't know what it felt like to want something so badly that you'd sacrifice everything to get it. He didn't know what it felt like to build something from nothing. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I had given him a gift. The gift of an easy life. The gift of security. But deep down I worried. I worried that I had made him soft. I worried that he wouldn't be able to handle the company when I was gone. I worried that everything I had built would crumble in his hands. He married Emma when he was 32. She was 28 at the time. Beautiful, polite, well-spoken. She came from a good family. Her father was a lawyer. Her mother was a professor. She had a degree in marketing from a respected school. She worked for a mid-sized firm downtown. She seemed perfect for him. Polished. Professional. Ambitious in the way young people are ambitious before life teaches them how hard ambition really is. I welcomed her into our family with open arms. I paid for their wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony at a country club with 200 guests. I gave them a generous gift. $50,000 to help them start their life together. I tried to be the kind of mother-in-law I had always wished I'd had. Supportive. Encouraging. Not intrusive. At first everything seemed fine. They were happy. They visited often. Emma would bring me flowers. Tulips usually. She remembered they were my favorite. Daniel would call me every Sunday morning. We'd talk about the business, about their lives, about nothing in particular. We had dinners together every few weeks. We celebrated holidays. Thanksgiving at my house. Christmas at theirs. Birthdays. Anniversaries. I felt like I had finally built the family I had always wanted. But slowly over time things began to change. It started small. Little comments. Little suggestions. Things I barely noticed at first. I welcomed her into our family with open arms. I paid for their wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony at a country club with 200 guests. I gave them a generous gift, $50,000 to help them start their life together. I tried to be the kind of mother-in-law I had always wished I'd had. Supportive. Encouraging. Not intrusive. At first everything seemed fine. They were happy. They visited often. Emma would bring me flowers. Tulips usually. She remembered they were my favorite. Daniel would call me every Sunday morning. We'd talk about the business, about their lives, about nothing in particular. We had dinners together every few weeks. We celebrated holidays. Thanksgiving at my house. Christmas at theirs. Birthdays. Anniversaries. I felt like I had finally built the family I had always wanted. But slowly over time things began to change. It started small. Little comments. Little suggestions. Things I barely noticed at first. Emma would say things like, "You work too hard, Margaret. You should think about slowing down." Or, "Don't you think it's time to let Daniel take on more responsibility?" Or, "You've earned a rest. You've done so much. You deserve to enjoy your life now." First, I thought she was being thoughtful. I thought she cared about my well-being. I thought she was looking out for me the way family should. But the comments kept coming. And they got more specific. More pointed. "You're not getting any younger, you know. What happens to the company if something happens to you? Daniel's ready. He's been ready for years. You're holding him back. Don't you want to retire? Don't you want to travel? To relax?" I brushed it off. I told myself she was just looking out for her husband, looking out for their future, looking out for the family. But deep down, something didn't feel right. There was an edge to her voice sometimes, a sharpness in her smile, a coldness in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. But I ignored it. Because she was my son's wife. Because she was family. Because I wanted to believe that the people I loved would never hurt me. Then came the health issues. About 8 months before that morning in the kitchen, I started feeling strange. Tired. Weak. Dizzy. At first I thought it was just stress. I had been working long hours. We were in the middle of a major acquisition. I wasn't sleeping well. I was drinking too much coffee and not eating enough. But it got worse. I started having headaches. Sharp stabbing pains that would come out of nowhere. Nausea that would hit me in waves. Confusion. I'd be in the middle of a meeting and suddenly forget what I was saying. I'd be reading a document and the words would blur together. My hands would shake. My vision would go dark around the edges. I went to the doctor. They ran tests. Blood work. MRIs. EKG. They couldn't find anything wrong. "It's probably just age," my doctor said. "Your body is slowing down. You're 63. You need to rest more. You need to reduce your stress levels." So I rested. I cut back my hours. I started working from home more often. I delegated more tasks to Daniel and the other executives. I tried to take care of myself. But I didn't get better. I got worse. The fatigue became overwhelming. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Days I couldn't think clearly enough to read an email. Days I felt like my body was shutting down piece by piece. Emma noticed. She was so concerned. She started coming over more often. 3 times a week. Then 4. Then 5. She'd arrive in the morning with fresh pastries and a smile. She'd bring me meals. Homemade soup. Casseroles. Herbal tea. She'd sit with me while I ate. "You need to keep your strength up," she'd say. "You're not eating enough. You're getting too thin." She was right. I was losing weight. My clothes hung loose on my frame. My face looked hollow. But I had no appetite. Everything tasted like ash in my mouth. Daniel was worried too. He started talking more seriously about the company, about succession planning, about making sure everything was in order. "Mom, we need to talk about the future," he'd say. "We need to make sure the business is protected. We need to make sure you're protected. What if something happens? What if you get worse? We need to have a plan." And I agreed. It made sense. I wasn't getting any younger. I was sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I could feel my body failing. I could feel death creeping closer. So I started preparing. I met with lawyers. I updated my will. I drafted transfer documents. I planned to hand the company over to Daniel. Not immediately, but soon. Within the year. I wanted to make sure he was ready. I wanted to make sure everything was set up properly. I wanted to make sure my legacy would continue. I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was doing the right thing. I had no idea I was signing my own death warrant. The meetings with the lawyers started in June. They were long, complicated, and exhausting. There were documents to review, signatures to collect, legal structures to finalize, transfer of ownership, transfer of assets, power of attorney, medical directives. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be airtight. Emma was always there. She'd sit beside Daniel taking notes, asking questions, making sure everything was clear. She was so organized, so detail-oriented, so helpful. "We just want to make sure everything is done right," she'd say. "We want to protect you, Margaret. We want to make sure you're taken care of no matter what happens." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my daughter-in-law. She was family. But there was something about the way she looked at those documents. Something about the way she smiled when the lawyers explained the terms. Something about the way she'd glance at Daniel when they thought I wasn't looking. A look I couldn't quite read. A look that made my stomach tighten. But I pushed the feeling away. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself my illness was making me suspicious, making me see things that weren't there. Clara, my housekeeper, had been with me for 11 years. She was quiet, efficient, and kind. She kept the house spotless. She cooked my meals. She did my laundry. She ran errands. She was always there, moving through the house like a shadow, rarely speaking unless spoken to. I trusted her completely. She had been there through everything. Through my divorce. Through Daniel's wedding. Through late nights and early mornings when I'd come home from business trips exhausted and empty. She'd have tea waiting for me. A warm meal. Clean sheets. She never asked for anything. Never complained. She just did her job with quiet dignity. But I noticed she had started acting strange. She would watch Emma carefully whenever she came over. She would hover near the kitchen when Emma made me tea or coffee. She would appear in doorways at odd moments, her face tight with worry. She would ask me questions that seemed intrusive at the time. "Mrs. Whitmore, are you feeling all right? Mrs. Whitmore, did you eat all the soup Mrs. Emma brought? Mrs. Whitmore, are you sure you want to sign those papers? Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should think about it more." I thought she was being nosy. I thought she was overstepping. I even told her once gently to mind her own business. "Clara, I appreciate your concern, but this is a family matter. Please focus on your work." She didn't say anything. She just nodded and walked away. But I could see the hurt in her eyes. I could see something else too. Fear. She looked afraid. Looking back now, I realized she was the only one trying to save me. She was the only one who saw what was happening. And I dismissed her. I pushed her away. I chose my family over the woman who had been loyal to me for 11 years. By August, I was barely functional. I couldn't work. I couldn't drive. I couldn't concentrate long enough to read a book or watch a television show. I couldn't even think clearly most days. My hands shook constantly. My vision blurred. I had trouble remembering things. Simple things. What day it was. Whether I'd eaten. Whether I'd taken my medication. Daniel and Emma suggested I move in with them for a while. "Just until you feel better," Daniel said. "We have the guest room. We can take care of you. You shouldn't be alone like this." But I refused. I wanted to stay in my own home. I needed my space. My independence. I had spent my entire life fighting for independence. I wasn't going to give it up now. Not even when I could barely stand on my own. "I'll be fine," I said. "Clara is here. She'll help me. I don't want to be a burden." Emma didn't like that. I could see it in her face. Her jaw tightened. Her smile became stiff. But she didn't argue. Instead, she started coming over every single day. Every morning at 8:30, she'd arrive with coffee. "Your favorite," she'd say. "Vanilla cream. Extra foam." She'd watch me drink it. She'd sit across from me at the kitchen table, making small talk, asking about my symptoms, offering suggestions. "Have you tried ginger tea? It's supposed to help with nausea. You should eat more protein. It'll give you energy. Maybe you need different medication. Maybe your doctor is missing something." She'd stay for lunch. She'd bring dinner. She was so attentive, so devoted, so present. "You're so lucky to have her," people would say. Friends, neighbors. Even Clara said it once, though her voice was flat when she did. And I agreed. I thought I was lucky. I thought my son had married a wonderful woman. A woman who truly cared about me. But Clara didn't agree. Clara was watching. And Clara was starting to see things I couldn't. One night in late August, Clara came to my room after Emma had left. I was lying in bed, too exhausted to move. The room was dark except for the lamp on my nightstand. She stood in the doorway, wringing her hands. "Mrs. Whitmore, I need to talk to you." I was so tired. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to sleep. But she looked so serious. "What is it, Clara?" She hesitated. She looked at the floor. Then at the door. Then back at me. She was trembling. "I think something is wrong." "What do you mean?" I think Mrs. Emma is doing something to you." The words hung in the air. I stared at her. I didn't understand at first. My brain was too foggy. "Doing something? What are you talking about?" "I think she's making you sick." I sat up slowly. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. "Clara, that's a terrible thing to say. Emma has been nothing but kind to me. She's been taking care of me." "I know it sounds crazy," Clara said quickly. Her voice was shaking. "But please just listen. You started getting sick right around the time she started bringing you food and drinks. And every time you eat or drink something she brings, you get worse. I've been watching. I've been keeping track." I stared at her. I didn't know what to say. My head was pounding. My thoughts were scattered. "Clara, that's absurd. Emma is my daughter-in-law. She's Daniel's wife. She loves me. She's trying to help me. Why would she want to hurt me?" Clara looked down at her hands. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The company. The money. The will. I've heard them talking when they think I'm not listening. I've heard them planning." "Planning what?" "Planning what they'll do when you're gone." The words hit me like a slap. I felt anger rise in my chest. Hot and defensive. "Get out." Clara looked up, startled. "Mrs. Whitmore." "Get out, Clara. I don't want to hear this. You're being ridiculous. You're being cruel. Get out of my room." Tears filled her eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. She nodded slowly and left. I lay back down, my heart pounding. I told myself Clara was being paranoid. Jealous, maybe. She had always been protective of me. Maybe she didn't like sharing my attention with Emma. Maybe she resented that Emma was family and she was just an employee. But a small part of me wondered. What if she was right? I pushed the thought away. I couldn't afford to think like that. I couldn't afford to doubt my own son, my own family. But the seed was planted. And over the following days I started to notice things. The way Emma's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The way she'd insist I finish my coffee even when I said I wasn't thirsty. The way she'd watch me so carefully after I ate something she brought. The way Daniel would ask about the legal documents every time he visited. "Did you review the changes the lawyer sent? Did you sign the updated power of attorney? We should finalize everything soon, Mom. Just to be safe." I started to feel uneasy. I started to feel watched. I started to feel like I was a problem that needed to be solved. But I told myself I was being irrational. I told myself my illness was making me think crazy thoughts. Until the morning of September 12th. The signing was scheduled for Tuesday, September 12th, at 10 in the morning. The lawyers were coming to the house. Daniel and Emma would be there. It was all arranged. Everything was prepared. I would officially transfer ownership of Whitmore Solutions to my son. I would sign over my life's work. My legacy. Everything I had built. I barely slept the night before. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I kept thinking about Clara's words. I kept thinking about how sick I'd been. I kept thinking about how quickly everything had happened. How in just 8 months I'd gone from running a multi-million-dollar company to barely being able to walk across a room. But I told myself I was being ridiculous. I told myself I was just nervous about letting go. About giving up control. This was natural. This was normal. Every parent feels this way when they hand something important to their child. When I woke up that morning, I felt worse than ever. My head was pounding so hard I thought my skull might split open. My stomach was churning. Nausea rolled through me in waves. I could barely stand. I had to hold onto the wall to make it to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, gray skin. I looked like death. I made it downstairs slowly, gripping the railing, taking one step at a time. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold on. Clara was in the kitchen when I came in. She looked at me and her face went pale. "Mrs. Whitmore, you should be in bed. You look terrible." "I have to do this," I said. My voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "The lawyers are coming. I have to sign the papers." "Please," Clara said. "Please wait. Just wait one more day. You're too sick. You need to rest." "I can't wait. It's all arranged." She looked like she wanted to say more, but she didn't. She just turned back to the stove where she was cooking oatmeal. Emma arrived at 8:30. Right on time. She let herself in with the key I'd given her months ago. She came into the kitchen carrying a travel mug and wearing a bright smile. "Good morning, Margaret," she said cheerfully. She was wearing a cream-colored blouse and dark slacks. Professional. Put together. She looked like she was going to a business meeting, which I suppose she was. She walked over and set the travel mug down in front of me. "I brought you coffee. Vanilla, just the way you like it. I thought you could use something comforting this morning. Big day." The mug was white with gold trim. Beautiful. Expensive looking. The kind of thing Emma would own. The steam rising from it smelled wonderful. Sweet. Rich. Familiar. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. My voice cracked. "That's very thoughtful." I reached for the mug. It was warm in my hands. The heat felt good against my cold fingers. Emma sat down across from me, watching me with that soft, concerned expression she always wore. But there was something else in her eyes now. Something I hadn't seen before. Anticipation. Excitement. Like she was waiting for something. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Tired," I admitted. "But I'll be fine." "You should drink your coffee," she said gently. "It'll help. Give you some energy." I nodded. I lifted the mug to my lips. And that's when I heard Clara's voice. "Mrs. Whitmore, please, don't drink that." Time seemed to slow down. I froze with the mug halfway to my mouth. I turned and saw Clara standing in the doorway between the kitchen and the hallway. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She looked absolutely terrified. Emma's face changed instantly. The softness vanished like someone had flipped a switch. Her eyes went hard. Cold. Angry. "Clara, that's enough," Emma snapped. Her voice was sharp. Commanding. "Go back to your room. Now." But Clara didn't move. She took a step into the kitchen. Tears were streaming down her face. "Please, Mrs. Whitmore," she said. Her voice was shaking. "Please don't drink it. It's poison." The word hung in the air like a knife. Poison. I looked down at the coffee in my hand. Then I looked at Emma. Her face was tight now. Her jaw clenched. Her hands were flat on the table. She looked like an animal backed into a corner. "That's insane," Emma said. Her voice was shaking now too, but with anger, not fear. "Clara, you're fired. Do you hear me? You're fired. Get out of this house right now." But Clara didn't move. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled something out. A small glass vial. She walked over and placed it on the table in front of me. There was a label on it. Official looking. A lab report. "I saved some," Clara said quietly. She was crying openly now. "From last week. From the soup Mrs. Emma brought. I had it tested at a private lab. I paid for it myself. I had to know. I had to be sure." I picked up the vial with trembling hands. I read the label. Arsenic trioxide. 15 parts per million. Detected in food samples submitted September 5th. My mind went blank. I stared at the words. They didn't make sense. They couldn't be real. "Small doses," Clara whispered. "Over months. Enough to make you sick. Enough to kill you slowly. So it would look natural. So no one would suspect." I looked up at Emma. She was standing now. Her face was white. Her hands were clenched into fists. "You're lying," Emma said. But her voice had no strength. No conviction. "I have recordings," Clara said. "I heard you talking to Mr. Daniel. In your car. In the guest room when you thought I was downstairs. I recorded everything on my phone. I heard you planning. I heard you talking about the will, about the company, about how much longer it would take, about making sure no one would suspect. Emma's eyes went wide. She looked at the stairs, then at the door, then back at Clara, then at me, and then she ran. She bolted for the front door, moving fast. But Clara was faster. She had already made a call. She had already prepared for this moment. The front door opened before Emma reached it. 2 police officers stood on the porch. "Emma Whitmore," one of them said. Emma stopped. She stood there in the hallway, frozen. "We need you to come with us," the officer said. "We have some questions." I heard shouting. I heard Emma screaming. "This is insane. This is a misunderstanding. That woman is crazy. She's lying." I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Running. My son came down the stairs. Daniel. My beautiful boy. The child I had raised. The child I had given everything to. "Mom, what's going on?" "What's?" He stopped when he saw the police. He stopped when he saw Emma in handcuffs. He stopped when he saw Clara standing beside me, her hand on my shoulder, protective and firm. "Daniel Whitmore?" the second officer said. Daniel's face went pale. "We need you to come with us as well." "What? Why? I haven't done anything." "We have evidence that suggests otherwise," the officer said calmly. "We have recordings. We have lab reports. We have testimony. You have the right to remain silent." I watched my son's face. I watched the panic, the fear, the realization, and then I saw something else. Something that broke my heart into pieces. Guilt. He knew. He had known all along. "Mom," he said. His voice cracked. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Mom, please. I can explain. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We need it. You don't understand." But I did understand. I understood perfectly. They let him out in handcuffs. They let Emma out screaming and crying. And I sat there in my kitchen holding a cup of poisoned coffee, staring at nothing. Clara sat down beside me. She gently took the mug from my hands and poured it down the sink. She came back and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel anything. I was numb. The woman I had been died that morning in that kitchen. The woman who believed in family. The woman who believed in blood. The woman who believed that love was enough. She died holding a cup of poison prepared by the people she loved most. The next few days were a blur. I don't remember much of it. Clara told me later that I went into shock. That I stopped talking. That I stopped eating. That I just sat in my room staring at the wall. The police came to the house. Detectives. They asked me questions. They showed me evidence. They played recordings for me. I heard my son's voice. I heard Emma's voice. I heard them planning my death like they were planning a vacation. "How much longer do you think?" The doctor said her liver is failing. "Probably another month. Maybe 2. We need to make sure everything is in order. Make sure she signs everything before she gets too sick. What if she changes her mind?" "She won't. She trusts us. She trusts you. You're her son." "What about Clara?" "We'll fire her after. She's nobody. No one will believe her even if she says something." I listened to those recordings and I felt like I was listening to strangers. I couldn't connect those cold, calculating voices to the people I knew. To the son I had raised. To the daughter-in-law who had brought me flowers. The detective, a woman named Sarah Martinez, sat with me in my living room. She was kind, patient. She explained everything carefully. "The arsenic was in almost everything they brought you. The coffee, the soup, the tea. Small amounts. Not enough to kill you quickly, but enough to accumulate in your system. Enough to cause organ failure over time. It's called chronic poisoning. It's hard to detect because the symptoms mimic so many other conditions." "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded hollow. "Empty. Based on the levels in your system, we think they'd been doing it for at least 6 months. Maybe longer." 6 months. Half a year of my own family poisoning me. Smiling at me while they slowly killed me. Why didn't I die? I asked. Detective Martinez looked at Clara, who was sitting beside me. Because of her, she said. Clara started noticing you were sicker after eating or drinking things Emma brought. So she started saving samples, keeping them in jars in her room. She had them tested at a private lab 3 weeks ago. When the first test came back positive for arsenic, she contacted us. We've been building a case ever since. I turned to Clara. She was crying silently, tears running down her face. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I tried, she whispered. But you didn't believe me. And I was scared. Scared they'd find out. Scared they'd hurt you faster. Scared they'd hurt me. So I went to the police instead. I gave them everything. The samples. The recordings. Everything. You saved my life. I should have done it sooner, she said. I should have. You saved my life, I said again. Firmer this time. You risked everything to save me. When my own family was trying to kill me, you were the only one who cared. She broke down then. She sobbed into her hands. And I held her. This woman who had been invisible to me for so long. This woman I had taken for granted. This woman who had loved me more than my own blood. The investigation moved quickly. They searched Daniel and Emma's house. They found more evidence. Receipts for arsenic trioxide purchased online under a fake name. Internet search histories. How to poison someone without getting caught. Symptoms of arsenic poisoning. How long does arsenic take to kill? Natural causes of death in elderly women. They found handwritten notes. Plans. Timelines. They had it all mapped out. When I would die. How they would explain it. What they would do with the money. They had already picked out a new house. A vacation home in the mountains. A boat. They had spent my money before I was even dead. The trial was 6 months later. I had to testify. I had to sit in that courtroom and look at my son's face. Look into his eyes. The eyes I had looked into the day he was born. The eyes that used to light up when I came home from work. The eyes that used to look at me with love. Now they were empty. Cold. He sat there in his suit, his hands folded on the table, and he wouldn't look at me. Emma cried the whole time. She played the victim. She said it was all Daniel's idea. That she was scared of him. That he had manipulated her. That she had tried to stop him but he threatened her. But the recordings told a different story. Her voice was the one that was coldest. The one that calculated. The one that pushed. We need to speed this up. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of pretending to care about that old woman. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca Chen, presented everything. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings. The lab reports. The searches. The purchases. Clara's testimony. My testimony. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. Fraud. Elder abuse. Daniel got 30 years to life. Emma got 35 years to life because the prosecution proved she was the mastermind. The one who had researched everything. The one who had purchased the poison. The one who had administered most of it. I sat in that courtroom and watched them lead my son away in chains. And I felt nothing. No sadness. No relief. Just emptiness. The woman I had been would have screamed. Would have cried. Would have begged for mercy for her child. But that woman was dead. After the trial I went home. My house felt different now. Tainted. Every room held memories that were now poisoned. Just like the coffee had been. The kitchen where Emma had smiled at me. The dining room where we'd had family dinners. The office where Daniel and I had talked about the future of the company. I couldn't stay there. I put the house on the market. It sold within a month. I didn't care about the price. I just wanted it gone. I spent weeks in the hospital detoxing. Getting the arsenic out of my system. Took time. Months. The doctors said I was lucky. Another month and the damage would have been irreversible. My liver was damaged but it would heal. My kidneys were struggling but they would recover. My body would heal. But my heart was another story. Clara stayed with me through everything. She came to the hospital every day. She sat beside my bed and read to me. She brought me real food when I got tired of hospital meals. She held my hand when I had nightmares. You don't have to stay, I told her once. You don't work for me anymore. I can't pay you. I don't even have a house. She looked at me with those kind eyes. "I'm not here because you pay me," she said. "I'm here because I care about you. Because you're my friend. Because you deserve to have someone who loves you." I cried then. For the first time since that morning in the kitchen, I cried. I sobbed. Years of pain and betrayal poured out of me. And Clara held me and let me break apart. When I was released from the hospital, I stayed in a hotel for a while. A nice one. Quiet. Anonymous. I needed time to think. Time to figure out who I was now. What I wanted. What was left of my life. I was 64 years old. I had no family. No home. No company anymore. I had stepped down from Whitmore Solutions. I couldn't run it anymore. Not after everything. The board understood. They appointed a new CEO. Someone I trusted. Someone who had worked with me for 15 years. I sold my shares. All of them. I walked away from the company I had built with my own hands. And you know what? It didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Because I realized that company had almost killed me. Not directly. But it had been the reason. The motivation. The prize my son and his wife were willing to murder for. Money had poisoned them long before they poisoned me. I gave most of the money away. I set up a foundation for elder abuse victims. I donated to organizations that help people escape dangerous family situations. I funded programs for caregivers and housekeepers, the people who see everything but are rarely heard. I kept enough to live comfortably, to be secure. But I didn't need $47 million. I didn't need 3 houses and luxury cars and designer clothes. Those things hadn't protected me. They had made me a target. Clara and I found a small house together. Not too big. Not too small. 3 bedrooms. A garden. A porch where we could sit and watch the sunset. It was in a quiet town an hour from the city. A place where no one knew who I was. Where I could just be Margaret. Not Margaret Whitmore, the businesswoman. Not Margaret Whitmore, the woman whose son tried to kill her. Just Margaret. We weren't employer and employee anymore. We were friends. Partners. Family in the way that matters. Not blood. But choice. Love. Loyalty. I learned to cook. Clara taught me. We'd spend hours in the kitchen together, trying new recipes, laughing when things went wrong. I learned to garden. I planted tomatoes and herbs and flowers. I learned to slow down. To breathe. To be present. I went to therapy. Twice a week at first. Then once a week. I talked about the betrayal. About the grief. About the guilt I felt for not seeing the signs. For not believing Clara when she tried to warn me. My therapist, Dr. Ellen Ross, helped me understand something important. You didn't fail to see the signs, she said. You saw them. But you couldn't believe them. Because believing them meant accepting that the people you loved most were capable of evil. That's not a failure. That's being human. That's having hope. Having faith. Those are good qualities, Margaret. They just made you vulnerable to people who didn't deserve them. I had to learn to forgive myself. That was the hardest part. Harder than forgiving Daniel. I'm not sure I have forgiven him. I don't know if I ever will. But I had to forgive myself for loving him. For trusting him. For wanting to believe the best. I started writing. Just journaling at first. But then I started writing about my experience. About what happened. About what I learned. I published an article under a pseudonym. It went viral. I started getting messages from people who had similar stories. People who had been betrayed by family. People who had been abused by the people they trusted most. I realized I wasn't alone. I realized my story mattered. Not because it was unique, but because it wasn't. Because this happens more than anyone wants to admit. Adult children who see their aging parents as obstacles. As bank accounts. As problems to be solved. I started speaking at conferences. At support groups. At community centers. I told my story. I warned people about the signs. I encouraged them to listen to the people who love them. Even when they're not family. Especially when they're not family. Because Clara wasn't my family by blood. But she was the one who saved me. She was the one who risked everything. She was the one who loved me enough to tell me the truth. Even when I didn't want to hear it. One evening about a year after the trial, Clara and I were sitting on the porch. The sun was setting. The sky was pink and orange and purple. It was beautiful. Peaceful. Do you regret it? Clara asked quietly. Regret what? Having Daniel. Building the company. All of it. I thought about it for a long time. Did I regret it? Did I regret the life I had lived? No, I said finally. I don't regret building the company. I don't regret working hard. I don't even regret having Daniel. Because he gave me joy for a long time. Real joy. He was a beautiful baby. A sweet child. Something went wrong along the way. Maybe I spoiled him. Maybe I gave him too much. Maybe he was just born with something missing. I don't know. But I can't regret loving him. I can only regret that he didn't love me back. Not really. Not the way a child should love a parent. Clara nodded. She understood. Do you regret not leaving sooner? I asked her. When you first suspected something was wrong? No, she said. Because if I had left, you would have died. And I couldn't let that happen. Why? I asked. Why did you care so much? I was just your employer. She looked at me. Really looked at me. Her eyes were soft. Because you were kind to me, she said. When my daughter was sick, you paid for her medical bills. You never asked me to pay you back. When my husband died, you came to the funeral. You held my hand. You told me I could take as much time as I needed. You treated me like a person. Like I mattered. Most people don't do that. Most people treat housekeepers like furniture. Like we're invisible. But you never did. So when I saw what they were doing to you, I couldn't just walk away. You had saved me once. I had to save you. I hadn't remembered those things. They had seemed like small gestures at the time. Normal things. Human things. But to Clara they had meant everything. That's when I realized something. Love isn't about blood. It's not about biology or obligation. It's about showing up. It's about caring. It's about seeing people and treating them with dignity and respect. Clara had loved me more than my own son. Because love is a choice. And she chose me. Every single day. The second year after the trial was about rebuilding. Not rebuilding my business. Not rebuilding my wealth. Rebuilding myself. Rebuilding my sense of who I was and what mattered. I started volunteering at a women's shelter. I helped women who were escaping abusive situations. I listened to their stories. I shared mine. I realized that abuse doesn't always come from strangers or romantic partners. Sometimes it comes from your own children. Your own family. The people you raised and loved and sacrificed for. One woman I met at the shelter was named Teresa. She was 58. Her adult son had stolen her life savings. Forged her signature. Taken out loans in her name. Left her with nothing. She was homeless when I met her. Broken. Ashamed. I don't understand, she said to me. I gave him everything. I worked 3 jobs to send him to college. I helped him buy his first house. I babysat his kids every weekend. How could he do this to me? I held her hand and I told her the truth. Because some people see love as weakness, I said. They see generosity as opportunity. They see sacrifice as permission to take more. It's not your fault. You loved him the way a mother should. He failed to love you back the way a son should. That's on him. Not you. She cried. And I cried with her. Because I understood. I understood the shame. The guilt. The feeling that somehow you must have done something wrong. That you must have failed as a parent. But Dr. Ross helped me understand that wasn't true. Some people are just broken. Some people are just selfish. Some people are just incapable of real love. And no amount of good parenting can fix that. I helped Teresa get back on her feet. I connected her with legal resources. I helped her file a police report. I helped her find housing. I helped her realize she deserved better. That she deserved to be safe and cared for. And in helping her, I helped myself. I realized that my pain had purpose. That my experience could help others. That I could turn the worst thing that ever happened to me into something meaningful. Clara and I started hosting dinners at our house. Small gatherings. Women who had been betrayed by family. Women who had been abused or neglected or stolen from. We'd cook together. Share stories. Cry. Laugh. Support each other. It became a community. A family of choice. Women who understood what it felt like to have blood relatives turn into enemies. Women who understood that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you love most. I also started painting. I had never painted before in my life. But my therapist suggested I try art therapy. So I bought some canvases and paints and brushes. And I started creating. At first, my paintings were dark, angry, full of sharp lines and harsh colors. Black and red and deep purple. They were violent and chaotic. They were my rage and my pain and my betrayal spilled onto canvas. But slowly over time they changed. They became softer, brighter. I started painting flowers, sunsets, Clara's face, our garden, things that brought me joy. Art became my way of processing everything, my way of expressing things I couldn't put into words. I had one painting I kept in my bedroom. It was called The Coffee Cup. It showed a white mug with gold trim sitting on a table. But the liquid inside wasn't coffee. It was dark and swirling and poisonous looking. And behind the cup, barely visible, was a woman's face. My face. Pale. Hollow. Dying. But beside the cup was a hand. Clara's hand. Reaching out. Stopping me. Saving me. That painting reminded me every day how close I had come to death. How close I had come to never knowing the truth. How close I had come to dying believing I was loved. I also wrote letters. Letters I never sent. Letters to Daniel. Letters to Emma. Letters to my younger self. Dear Daniel, I wrote. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I'll ever send it. But I need to say these things. I need you to know how much you hurt me. How much you betrayed me. I gave you everything. My time. My money. My love. My trust. And you tried to kill me for more. You couldn't wait for me to die naturally. You couldn't wait for me to give you everything willingly. You had to take it. You had to speed it up. You had to murder me. I don't understand how you became this person. I don't understand where I went wrong. Maybe I gave you too much. Maybe I loved you too much. Maybe I protected you from consequences and created a monster. I don't know. All I know is that the son I loved died long before you went to prison. Maybe he never existed. Maybe I just wanted to believe he did. I hope one day you feel remorse. I hope one day you understand what you did. But I'm not holding my breath. I'm not waiting for your apology. I'm not waiting for anything from you anymore. I'm letting you go. I'm choosing to live. I'm choosing to heal. I'm choosing to be free. Goodbye, Daniel. Goodbye forever. Mom, I never sent it. But writing it helped. Gave me closure. I also wrote a letter to Clara. Dear Clara, I wrote. I don't say this enough. Thank you. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see. Thank you for believing what I couldn't believe. Thank you for risking everything to save me. Thank you for staying when anyone else would have left. Thank you for loving me when my own blood wanted me dead. You are the truest friend I have ever had. You are my family. Not because of obligation or biology, but because of choice. Because of love. Because of loyalty. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm grateful every single day that you're in my life. You saved me in more ways than one. You saved my life. But you also saved my faith in humanity. You showed me that goodness exists. That real love exists. That not everyone is selfish and cruel. I love you, Clara. Not as an employer. Not as a friend. But as family. Thank you for being my family when I needed one most. Love always, Margaret. I did give her that letter. She cried when she read it. And she hugged me tight. You're my family too, she whispered. 2 years after the trial, I got a letter from Daniel. It was forwarded through my lawyer. He wasn't supposed to contact me directly. There was a restraining order. I stared at that envelope for 3 days before I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. His handwriting. The handwriting I used to see on birthday cards and school assignments and grocery lists. Mom, it said, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you probably hate me. I deserve that. I deserve worse. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. I'm writing because I need you to know something. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know how I became this person. Emma and we got caught up in something. We wanted things. We wanted the money. We wanted the company. We wanted the life we thought we deserved. And somewhere along the way we stopped seeing you as a person. We stopped seeing you as my mother. We started seeing you as an obstacle. As something in the way. I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to explain. But there's no explanation that makes it okay. There's no reason that justifies what we did. We tried to kill you. We poisoned you for months. We watched you suffer and we didn't care. We smiled at you while we murdered you. I'm a monster, Mom. I know that now. Prison has given me a lot of time to think. A lot of time to realize what I've lost. I've lost you. I've lost my freedom. I've lost my soul. I dream about you sometimes. I dream about when I was little. When you used to read to me before bed. When you used to take me to the park. When you used to make me chocolate chip pancakes on Saturday mornings. I dream about the mom who loved me. And I wake up and I remember that I destroyed her. I killed the woman who gave me life. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could undo everything. But I can't. So all I can do is say I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I hope you're happy now. I hope you're healthy. I hope you found peace. You deserve that. You deserve everything good. I love you. I know I don't have the right to say that anymore. But it's true. I love you. I'm sorry I showed it in the worst possible way. Your son, Daniel. I read that letter 3 times. I cried. Not because I forgave him. Not because his apology changed anything. But because it was another kind of death. The final death of the hope that maybe somehow this had all been a mistake. That maybe he wasn't really that person. But he was. He had tried to kill me. And he had to live with that now. I wrote back. Just once. Daniel, I wrote. I received your letter. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't forgive you. I don't hate you. I just feel nothing. You're a stranger to me now. The son I loved wouldn't have done what you did. So that son must have never existed. Or he died somewhere along the way. I don't know which is worse. I hope you find peace in prison. I hope you use this time to become a better person. Not for me. For yourself. But I won't be a part of your life anymore. I can't. You tried to murder me. That's not something I can get past. That's not something I can forgive and forget. I'm releasing you. I'm letting you go. I'm moving forward with my life. And you need to do the same. Goodbye, Daniel. Margaret. I sent it through my lawyer. And that was the last communication we ever had. Some people asked me if I would ever visit him in prison. If I would ever give him a chance to apologize in person. The answer was no. I didn't know him that. I didn't know him anything. He had taken enough from me. My health. My trust. My sense of safety. My belief in family. I wasn't going to give him anything more. 3 years after that terrible morning in the kitchen, I found myself standing in front of a mirror. Really looking at myself for the first time in years. I was 66 years old. My hair was completely gray now. I had stopped coloring it. I had decided to embrace it. My face had wrinkles. Lines around my eyes. Lines around my mouth. But they weren't all from pain. Some of them were from smiling. From laughing. From joy. I had gained weight. Healthy weight. I wasn't the hollow skeletal woman I had been in those last months of poisoning. I was strong again. Healthy again. I looked different. But I also looked alive. Clara and I had been living together for 3 years. We had a rhythm. A routine. A life that felt peaceful and full. We woke up early and had coffee together on the porch. Real coffee. Safe coffee. Coffee that I made myself or that Clara made while I watched. We'd work in the garden together. We'd go to the farmer's market on Saturdays. We'd cook elaborate meals and invite friends over. We'd watch old movies and laugh at the ridiculous parts. We'd read books and discuss them. We'd take long walks and just talk. It was a simple life. But it was beautiful. I had also started dating. That surprised everyone, including me. I hadn't thought I would ever want to be romantic with anyone again. But I met a man named Thomas at one of my speaking engagements. He was 68. A widower. His wife had died 5 years earlier from cancer. He was kind, gentle, patient. He had soft eyes and a warm smile. He listened when I talked. He didn't push. He didn't rush. He just existed beside me in a comfortable, easy way. We went on our first date to a quiet Italian restaurant. I was so nervous I almost canceled 3 times. But Clara pushed me to go. You deserve to be happy, she said. You deserve to have love in your life. Real love. From someone who sees you and values you. Thomas and I talked for 4 hours that night. About everything. Our lives. Our losses. Our fears. our hopes. He told me about his wife, how much he missed her, how he didn't think he'd ever want to love anyone again. But then I heard you speak, he said. I heard your story, about surviving, about rebuilding, about choosing to live even after everything. And I realized I wanted that. I wanted to choose life again too. I told him about Daniel, about Emma, about the poisoning. I laid it all out. I wanted him to know. I needed him to know. He listened without judgment, without pity. When I finished, he reached across the table and took my hand. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he said. Not because you survived, but because you're still here, still open, still willing to trust. I don't know if I could do that. I'm not sure I trust easily anymore, I admitted. I'm not sure I ever will. That's okay, he said. Trust should be earned, not given freely. I'll earn it, however long it takes. And he did. Slowly, patiently. He showed up when he said he would. He called when he said he'd call. He respected my boundaries. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. 6 months into dating, he met Clara. I was nervous about that. Clara was protective of me. She was wary of anyone new in my life. She had earned that right. But Thomas won her over immediately. Clara, he said when I introduced them, Margaret has told me so much about you, about how you saved her life, about how you're her family. I want you to know I'm not here to replace anyone or change anything. I'm just here to add to her life if she'll let me. And I know that means respecting the people she loves. So I hope we can be friends. Clara studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. You'll do, she said. That was high praise from Clara. Thomas and I took things slow. We didn't rush into anything. We just enjoyed each other's company. We went to museums. We went to concerts. We cooked together. We traveled. He introduced me to his children. 2 daughters. They were kind and welcoming. They didn't judge me for my past. They just accepted me as the woman their father cared about. I realized that family doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be painful. It can just be easy, comfortable, safe. One evening, about a year into our relationship, Thomas and I were sitting on my porch watching the sunset. Clara had gone to visit her daughter for the weekend. It was just the 2 of us. I love you, he said suddenly. I looked at him surprised. We hadn't said those words yet. We had danced around them, but neither of us had said them out loud. You don't have to say it back, he continued quickly. I just wanted you to know. I love you, Margaret. I love your strength. I love your kindness. I love the way you've rebuilt your life. I love the way you treat people. I love the way you've let me into your world. I love you. I felt tears in my eyes, but they were good tears. Happy tears. I love you too, I said. I didn't think I could love again. I didn't think I wanted to. But I do. I love you, Thomas. He leaned over and kissed me. Soft, gentle, perfect. We didn't get married. We talked about it, but we both agreed we didn't need a legal document to prove our commitment. We were happy as we were. He kept his house. I kept mine. But we spent most of our time together. It was exactly what I needed. Love without ownership. Love without control. Love without losing myself. I also reconnected with some old friends. People I had lost touch with over the years when I was building my company. When I was too busy to maintain friendships. One friend, Patricia, I hadn't seen in 15 years. We had worked together early in my career. She had moved to Oregon. We had exchanged Christmas cards but nothing more. I called her out of the blue one day. I don't know why. I just felt the urge to reach out. Margaret, she said when she answered. Is that really you? It's really me, I said. We talked for 2 hours. I told her everything. She cried with me. She raged for me. She celebrated my survival with me. I'm coming to visit, she said. I need to see you. I need to hug you. She came the following month. She stayed for a week. We spent every day together. Talking, laughing, crying, healing. I'm sorry I wasn't there, she said. I'm sorry I didn't stay in touch. I'm sorry you went through this alone. I wasn't alone, I said. I had Clara. And now I have you again. That's what matters. She introduced me to meditation. We'd sit together in my garden every morning, breathing, centering, finding peace. It helped. It gave me tools to manage the anxiety, the flashbacks, the trauma. I also started going to a support group for survivors of violence by family members. It was held at a community center every Thursday evening. There were about 15 regular members. All of us had been betrayed by blood relatives in some way. There was Michael, whose brother had tried to push him off a cliff to collect life insurance. There was Linda, whose daughter had tried to smother her with a pillow. There was Robert, whose son had beaten him and left him for dead. There was Grace, whose entire family had conspired to have her declared mentally incompetent so they could take her money. These were my people. The people who understood what it felt like to have your family become your enemy. We shared our stories. We supported each other. We reminded each other that we were not alone, that we were not crazy, that we deserved better. One night, a new woman joined the group. She was young, maybe 40. She sat in the back, silent, crying quietly. After the meeting, I approached her. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. "My mother is sick," she said. "Really sick. And my brother keeps offering to take care of her, keeps bringing her food and drinks. But she keeps getting worse. And I think he's doing something to her. But I don't know how to prove it. I don't know what to do. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Everyone says I'm paranoid." My blood ran cold. I sat down beside her. "You're not crazy," I said. "You're not paranoid. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is." I told her about Clara, about how Clara had saved samples, had them tested, had collected evidence, had gone to the police. "You can do the same thing," I said. "Save samples of anything he brings her. Take them to a private lab. Get them tested. If there's something wrong, you'll have proof. And if there's not, you'll have peace of mind." She looked at me with desperate hope. "Do you really think?" "I don't think," I said firmly. "I know. Because the same thing happened to me. My own son tried to poison me. For months. And if it wasn't for my housekeeper, I'd be dead. So yes, I believe you. And I'm telling you to act now. Before it's too late." She hugged me. She sobbed into my shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing me." 2 months later, she came back to the group. Her brother had been arrested. The food he had been bringing had been laced with antifreeze. Her mother was in the hospital, but she was going to survive. "You saved her life," the woman said to me. "You saved my mother's life." "No," I said. "You did. You trusted your instincts. You acted. You saved her." But I felt a sense of purpose in that moment. A sense that maybe everything I had been through meant something. Maybe I could help others. Maybe I could prevent other families from experiencing what I experienced. That's when I decided to write a book. Not just articles. Not just speeches. A whole book. About my experience. About the signs. About the psychology of family violence. About how to protect yourself. About how to heal. Took me a year to write. It was painful. Dredging up all those memories. Reliving all that trauma. But it was also cathartic. Therapeutic. Necessary. I called it Blood and Betrayal. Surviving when family becomes fatal. Clara helped me edit it. Thomas supported me through the hard days when I wanted to give up. Patricia encouraged me to be honest. Brutally honest. And I held nothing back. I told the whole truth. The ugly truth. The truth about how the people you love most can become the people who hurt you most. The book was published when I was 67. It became a bestseller. Not because people love tragedy, but because it filled a need. Because too many people have experienced family betrayal. Too many people have been hurt by blood relatives. Too many people felt alone in their pain. I started getting messages. Hundreds of them. Thousands. From people all over the world. "Thank you for telling your story. You gave me the courage to leave. You helped me understand I wasn't crazy. You saved my life." Every message reminded me why I had survived. Why Clara had fought so hard to save me. Because my story mattered. Because sharing it could save others. Now I'm 70 years old. 7 years have passed since that morning in the kitchen. 7 years since Clara saved my life. 7 years since my world fell apart and I had to rebuild it from scratch. I look in the mirror now and I see a different woman than the one I was. I see someone who has been broken and put herself back together. I see someone who has survived the unthinkable. I see someone who has learned what really matters. It's not money. It's not success. It's not legacy or empire or power. It's love. Real love. The kind that shows up. The kind that protects. The kind that chooses you every single day. Clara and I still live together. We're both older now. Slower. But we're happy. We have our routines. Our rhythms. Our life. Thomas is still in my life. We celebrated 5 years together last month. We had a small party. Just close friends. People who matter. People who have earned their place in my life. I don't have a relationship with Daniel. I probably never will. He's still in prison. He'll be there for a long time. Maybe forever. I've made peace with that. I've made peace with the fact that my son is gone. The son I thought I had maybe never existed. Or maybe he did once and something broke him. I'll never know. But I've stopped blaming myself. I've stopped wondering what I could have done differently. I did the best I could with what I knew. That's all anyone can do. I've also learned to spot the signs, the red flags, the warnings. I've become an expert at reading people, at trusting my instincts, protecting myself. I teach others to do the same. I speak at conferences. I lead workshops. I mentor people who have survived family violence. I help them rebuild. I help them heal. I help them understand that they deserve better. The foundation I started has helped thousands of people. We provide legal assistance, financial support, safe housing, counseling, everything someone needs to escape a dangerous family situation and start over. Every person we help feels like a redemption, like proof that something good came from something terrible. I still paint. My art has evolved. It's brighter now, full of color and light. I paint hope. I paint healing. I paint the life I've built from the ashes of the life I lost. I still write. I'm working on a second book. This one is about healing, about rebuilding, about finding joy after trauma. I still have hard days. Days when I remember. Days when the grief hits me like a wave. Days when I can't believe that my own child tried to murder me. But those days are fewer now, further apart. And when they come, I have people who support me. Clara, Thomas, Patricia, my support group, my community. I'm not alone anymore. I'll never be alone again. Because I've learned that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up when you're dying. It's about who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. It's about who loves you not because they have to, but because they choose to. Clara's my family. Thomas is my family. The women in my support group are my family. The people I've helped through my foundation are my family. These are the people who matter. These are the people who have earned the title. Last week I did something I never thought I would do. I went back to that town where I grew up. The town with no traffic light. The town where I learned that if you want something you have to work for it. I drove past the house where I grew up. It looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was still peeling. The roof probably still leaked. But someone lived there. Someone was making a home there just like my family had. I drove past the factory where my father worked. It was closed now. Abandoned. Windows broken. Weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. A monument to a different time. A different economy. I drove to the cemetery where my parents were buried. I hadn't been there in years. Not since my father's funeral 15 years ago. I stood at their graves and I talked to them. I told them everything. About the company. About Daniel. About Emma. About the poisoning. About Clara. About surviving. About rebuilding. I'm okay now, I said out loud, my voice carrying across the quiet cemetery. I know you would have been worried. I know you would have been heartbroken about Daniel. But I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm happy. I'm free. I'm alive. Cried there. Not sad tears. Releasing tears. Healing tears. I cried for the girl I had been. The girl who had sat at that kitchen table doing homework by lamplight. The girl who had promised herself she would build something better. Something bigger. I had built it. And then I had watched it almost destroy me. But I had survived. And I had built something new. Something better. Not a company. Not an empire, but a life. A real life. With real love. With real connection. With real meaning. Before I left the cemetery, I made a promise to my parents. I won't waste the time I have left, I said. I won't spend it chasing things that don't matter. I won't sacrifice the people I love for success. I'll live. Really live. The way you taught me to. With dignity. With kindness. With purpose. When I got home that evening, Clara had made dinner. Something simple. Pasta with vegetables from our garden. Fresh bread. A salad. We sat on the porch and ate together, watching the sun go down. Where did you go today? Clara asked. Home, I said. I went home. She understood. She didn't ask more questions. She just reached over and squeezed my hand. Thomas came over later. He brought dessert. Ice cream from the local shop. We sat together, the three of us, eating ice cream and talking about nothing important. About the weather. About the garden. About a funny thing that happened at the market. This was my life now. Simple. Quiet. Full of small joys. And it was more valuable than any empire. More precious than any amount of money. Before bed, I wrote in my journal. Something I did every night now. A practice my therapist had suggested years ago that I had maintained. Today I am grateful for being alive. Being healthy. Being loved. Being free. Clara. Thomas. Patricia. Second chances. Simple joys. Quiet moments. Sunset. Ice cream. Laughter. Safety. Home. I read back through old entries sometimes. From right after the poisoning. The entries were dark then. Angry. Confused. Full of pain. But over time they had changed. Slowly. Gradually. The darkness lifted. Light crept back in. Hope returned. That's the thing about healing. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments. In tiny victories. In quiet realizations. One day you wake up and you realize you smiled without forcing it. One day you realize you went a whole day without thinking about what happened. One day you realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're living. I thought about the woman I had been 7 years ago. The woman holding that coffee cup. The woman about to drink poison. The woman who was minutes away from death. If I could go back and talk to her, what would I say? I would tell her to listen to Clara. I would tell her to trust her instincts. I would tell her that the people who love her aren't always the people she thinks they are. But I would also tell her something else. Something more important. I would tell her that she's going to survive. That she's going to be okay. That this terrible thing is going to happen, but it won't destroy her. It will transform her. It will teach her what really matters. It will show her who she really is. I would tell her that 7 years from now, she'll be sitting on a porch with people who truly love her, eating ice cream and watching the sunset, and she'll be happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. I would tell her that the worst thing that ever happened to her will lead to the best life she's ever lived. Because that's the truth. That's my truth. I almost died. My own son tried to kill me. The child I raised, the child I loved more than anything in the world, put poison in my coffee and watched me get sicker and sicker and planned my funeral while I was still alive. That should have destroyed me. It should have broken me beyond repair. It should have left me bitter and angry and afraid. But it didn't. Because of Clara. Because she saw. Because she cared. Because she acted. Because she loved me enough to save me, even when I didn't believe I needed saving. And because of me. Because I chose to survive. Because I chose to heal. Because I chose to keep living even when living felt impossible. I learned that blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. Love does. Showing up does. Choosing someone every single day does. I learned that success and money and power don't protect you. They can actually make you more vulnerable. They can turn people you love into predators. I learned that the quiet people, the invisible people, the ones society overlooks, those are often the heroes. The ones who see everything. The ones who care when no one else does. Clara taught me that. She taught me to see people. To value people. To honor the dignity in everyone, regardless of their position or status. I learned that forgiveness isn't necessary for healing. I haven't forgiven Daniel. I probably never will. But I've released him. I've let go of the anger. I've stopped letting what he did define my life. I learned that it's never too late to start over. I was 63 when my life fell apart. An age when most people think their life is basically over. But I rebuilt everything. I created a new life. A better life. A life I actually want to live. I learned that trauma doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning. It can be the catalyst for change. For growth. For becoming the person you were always meant to be. Most importantly, I learned what love really is. Not the love I thought I had with Daniel. That wasn't love. That was obligation. Expectation. Transaction. Real love is what Clara showed me. What Thomas shows me. What my chosen family shows me every day. Real love doesn't keep score. It doesn't calculate. It doesn't measure what it can get in return. It just gives. Just shows up. Just cares. Real love saves your life. Even when you don't ask for it. Even when you don't believe you need it. Even when saving you puts the other person at risk. That's the lesson I want to share with anyone who reads my story or hears me speak. If someone in your life is trying to hurt you, and someone else is trying to warn you, listen to the one who's trying to protect you. Don't dismiss them because they're not family. Don't ignore them because believing them would mean accepting something painful. Listen. Trust your instincts. Pay attention to who benefits from your suffering. Pay attention to who's asking questions about your will, your money, your assets. Pay attention to who's rushing things, pushing things, controlling things. And most importantly, pay attention to who shows up with no agenda, who helps with no expectation of return, who loves you without needing anything from you. Those are your people. Those are your real family. Everything else is just biology. And biology alone means nothing. As I close this chapter of my life, not the final chapter but this one, the one about surviving and healing, I want to leave you with one more thing. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where you feel unsafe with your family, where something feels wrong but you can't prove it, where people are dismissing your concerns, please listen to yourself. Please trust yourself. Please get help. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not being dramatic. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't wait until you're holding a cup of poison before you act. Don't wait until you're dying before you ask for help. Don't wait until it's almost too late. Act now. Save yourself. Or find someone like Clara who will save you. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to live a life where the people around you want you alive, not dead. And if you've already survived something like this, if you've already been betrayed by family, if you're reading this and relating to every word, I want you to know something. You're not alone. I see you. I understand. And I'm telling you, it gets better. Not immediately. Not easily. But it does get better. You can heal. You can rebuild. You can create a life that's beautiful and meaningful and full of real love. It won't be the life you planned. It won't be the life you thought you'd have. But it will be yours. Truly yours. And it will be worth living. I'm 70 years old now. I should be dead. According to Daniel and Emma's plan, I should have died 7 years ago. My body should be in the ground. My company should be in Daniel's hands. My money should be spent. My story should be over. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still fighting. I'm still loving. I'm still growing. And every morning when I wake up, when I open my eyes and see the sunrise through my bedroom window, when I smell the coffee Clara is making in the kitchen, when I hear Thomas's voice on the phone saying good morning, I remember. I remember how close I came to losing all of this. How close I came to never knowing the truth. How close I came to dying believing I was loved by people who wanted me dead. And I'm grateful. Not for what happened, but for surviving it. For the woman it forced me to become. For the life it forced me to build. I'm grateful for Clara. For her courage. For her love. For her refusal to stay silent even when I told her to. I'm grateful for the second chance. For the opportunity to do things differently. To love more carefully. To live more intentionally. To appreciate what really matters. I'm grateful that I'm here to tell this story. That I survived to warn others. That my pain can serve a purpose. And I'm grateful for you, whoever you are, reading this or hearing this right now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for taking the time to hear my story. I hope it helps you in some way. I hope it warns you. I hope it heals you. I hope it gives you courage to trust yourself and protect yourself and choose yourself. Because you matter. Your life matters. Your safety matters. Your happiness matters. Don't let anyone, not even family, especially not family, convince you otherwise. This is Margaret Whitmore. I'm 70 years old. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm loved. I'm free. And that coffee that was supposed to kill me? I never drank it. Because someone loved me enough to tell me the truth. And I was finally ready to listen. May you have someone in your life who loves you like that. And may you be that person for someone else. Thank you for listening to my story. This is my truth. This is my survival. This is my life. And I'm not done living it yet.